All right. Shalom, shalom. Keep as a sheep. Brother Kashai. Back with another lesson. Lord's will. This video is edifying. All right. Before we begin, I'd like to first start off by giving all praise, all honor, and all glory to the Most High. Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Bahashem, Rekah HaKodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Shalom, and shalom to those for elect. All right, and today's lesson will be titled "The Pruning Process." All right, and of course, today's lesson is inspired through the spirit and power of Yahweh, by Hashem Yahweh Shai, by Hashem Kodash. All right, but today's lesson will be more of an exhortation lesson. All right, and it's inspired by the John chapter 15. All right, I believe verse 1 down, and it goes into the Lord explaining how we will have to basically abide in Him. All right, He being the real quick, bear with me. But the Lord Himself being a true vine. All right, He Himself being the vine. All right, and basically being the true source of life. All right, truth, because it says in the Most High, Most High Yahweh, right, the Father, He being the gardener, right, and we, Lord, we're part of that number, but they hopefully elect, we being the vine, the vineyard, right. The scriptures are very symbolic, and a lot of these parables, all right, a lot of these precepts, these scriptures, all right, they are symbolic to like gardening, all right, or harvesting, all right, planting, okay, things of that nature. Because to garden, all right, to grow crops, harvesting, things like that, those things require diligence, all right, and they ultimately bring forth life. All right, it's a process. It's not something that happens overnight. Not every time anyway, right? And me myself, I'm not real familiar with gardening and pruning and planting and things of that nature. But I grew up in a family where they prioritize plants and gardening and things of that nature. But I never took the time to actually do my own gardening or do my own planting, right? So this is all new to me, right? But I said, understanding the scripture, it gives you a mind of a gardener. It gives you the mind of a farmer or whatever, right? So man, right now we're in that pruning process, all right? And we're gonna, before we grab any precepts, we're gonna go into that pruning meaning. All right, it says pruning, all right, the selective cutting, okay, and removing of parts of a plant, such as branches, buds, roots, to improve its health, shape, and fruit production. Okay, and again, we are compared to that, that vine. Okay, we're compared to that branch. All right, and the Lord is pruning. Okay, He is removing things such as buds and roots, but on a carnal level, it could be things in you, all right, that are not beneficial, things that are, it's not good for your health, all right, for your growth, for your, fruit production, okay, and those things, those lustful desires, okay, those sinful desires that you crave, those wicked thoughts, all right, those things that you think the Most High don't see, okay, and you know, many brothers have this testimony. Many brothers been going into these same exact lessons. All right, it just may be a different setting or a different atmosphere or a different timing or title or whatever, but it all goes back to the same thing. The Most High is, we're in a pruning process. Okay, we're being pruned of things that no longer benefits us. Okay, because things grow with you. As you grow, things grow. You're because you gotta understand, while we need flesh, these desires, they grow. Okay, but you have to grow in the spirit, not in the flesh, man. All right, and those things that grow with you, they're not always needed. They're not always necessary for the next process or the next step. Right, and they may hinder you. It says why we prune plants. So like it says, better health removes dead, broken, or diseased wood, so sickness does not spread. All right, so you have to cut off, all right, and remove things that are dead, things that don't bring life, man. Right, things that are broken. Okay, it says diseased wood or sickness, so sickness does not spread. Because why? Ultimately, the things we desire in this flesh, they can spread, man. They can consume. They can consume you. Like I said, they grow with you. Okay. One day you want this. Next day you want 2 times more than that. All right. And now you craving this. Now you desiring this. Now you got these. Now you doing this. So it grows, right? Like a sickness, like a disease. Like it spreads, right? You have to cut it off like a cancer, man, so it doesn't spread throughout the body, right? It says more fruit and flowers, okay? So, cutting off certain things, it adds to the spirit, all right? You may grow in the spirit, okay? You may grow, and that's what the Lord requires for us in His truth. He requires for us to grow. You can't be the same man you were when you came in His truth, man. You have to, it's a standard. You have to level up, okay? We're called to live a certain way. You can't be that old man, all right? It says more fruit and flowers. It says directs the plant's energy into making larger, high quality blooms and food. All right, so Lord ultimately wants to make you more fruitful, make you more beneficial to the body, make you of more use to Him. Okay. We don't stay on the same level. We don't stay stagnant in His truth, man. We have, the scripture says, roughly paraphrasing, the harvest is plenty, but the laborers are few. All right, so there's much. The Lord, He wants to give you a lot. All right, meaning you have to be ready to receive it. But if you got all this stuff holding you down or weighing you down or holding you back or preventing your health, all right, your spiritual health, all right, and you're not gonna be able to inherit, all right, or take on what the Lord has for you. Okay. It says safety and light. These are the reasons why we prune. It says clears out crossing branches and let sunlight and air reach inside of the plant. So you have to remove certain things in you so the Lord can replace those things With righteousness, you have to remove that wickedness so he can replace it. With righteousness, you have to remove that darkness so he can replace it with what? Light, ultimately. Okay? So we're in the process where the Lord is replacing, cutting off things not needed and unwanted. All right? For this walk, man. And that way you can be more fruitful. All right? Your fruit production. Okay, I want to grab this real quick. It says pruning and fruit. It says branches that do not grow fruit are removed, while productive branches are cleaned up and trimmed to grow even more. So we're in a process where the Lord is basically cleaning us up. Okay, that way we can, grow more, man. All right. So the branches are cleaned up and trimmed. All right, so you may be being trimmed, man. The Lord may be taking things from you, okay? And even on a carnal level, he may be taking things out of your life right now, right? It says remaining connected. It says believers are the branches and must stay connected to Yahweh Shai to do any good work, just as a branch needs the main stem to live. All right, so we need the Lord, all right, because we are those branches. And the branches, they produce and hold the fruit. Okay, so we need to be in the Lord to be fruitful. We need to be in Him, all right, and He in us, all right, to even bear fruit, to even grow fruit. Because without Him, we're just a branch, right, with no life. It says a branch that breaks off, dries up, dies, and gets gathered up to be burned in a fire. And we know what that fire is. So you don't want to be that branch, man, right, that dries up and get gathered up to be burned. Okay? Make yourself fruitful. Okay? Stay in the Lord. Okay? I got a couple precepts. Okay? And once again, Lord willing, this video is edifying. All right. Of course, let's start 2nd Esdras 14. And I'll start at verse 13. It says, now therefore set thine house in order and reprove thy people. Comfort such of them as be in trouble, and now renounce corruption. Let go from the mortal thoughts, cast away the burdens of man, put off now the weak nature. All right, put off now, and that means basically put off the things that men worry about. All right, carnal men worry about. Cast away the burdens of man, put off now that weak nature. It says, and set aside the thoughts that are most heavy unto thee. I haste thee to flee from these times. All right, what are those thoughts that are most heavy unto you? The things that you don't allow the Lord to work out for you, man. Okay, the things that you worry about, ultimately the Lord has already figured it out. All right, we just have to abide in Him, remember? It says, let go from these mortal thoughts, cast away the burdens of man, put off now the weak nature. And, I brought this out because, as the pruning process, we have to cut off that weak nature, anything weak, all right? Weak leaves, weak buds, okay? It's not useful, okay? It's in the way at this point, okay? Let's get Ephesians 4:22. This is the English Standard Version. It says to put off your old self, which belongs to your former manner of life and is corrupt through deceitful desires, and to be renewed in the spirit of your minds, and to put on the new self created after the likeness of God in true righteousness and holiness. This requires pruning. Okay, so put off your old self. Okay, meaning you have to cut off certain things, become that new flower, or become that fruit. Okay, to bear that fruit, right? Because you don't want to be, because men know men by their what? By their fruits. So you want to, if you want to be known for good fruits. Okay. Says to put on the new self created after the likeness of God in true righteousness and holiness. Okay. What else? And we know the fruits of the Spirit are, see Galatians 5:22 says, but the fruit of the Spirit is what? Love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. Against such there is no law. So these are the fruits, all right, that we have to, bear as men, okay? Our spiritual fruits, right? Again, it says love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. Against such there is no law, man. So these are the fruit that you want to bear. These are the fruit that are good, okay? These are the fruits that are good for your body, man. They're good for people, okay? They're healthy, right, on a carnal level, but also on a spiritual level, man. Colossians 3 and 8, it says, but now ye also put off all these: anger, wrath, malice, blasphemy, filthy communication out of your mouth. All right, these are just things that and we could, there's plenty other. All right. Matter of fact, I'll start at 5. It says mortify. All right, it means to make dead, put off. It says mortify therefore your members which are upon the earth: fornication, uncleanness, inordinate affection, evil, concupiscence, and covetousness, which is idolatry. Slakia. For which things sake the wrath of the Most High cometh on the children of disobedience, in thee which ye also walked sometime when ye lived in them. But now ye also put off all these: anger, wrath, malice, blasphemy, filthy communication out of your mouth. Okay. And there's just a few things that you don't want to, bear as fruit. All right. Being, and you won't bear those such things if you're in the Lord, though, honestly. And let's go to 1 John 15, because that's the point. 1 John 15, start at verse 1. It says, I am the true vine. So the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, he's the true vine. It says, and my Father, all right, the Father Yahweh, is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit. All right. It's part of the pruning process. It says, while every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes, right? So if you're bearing good fruit, he's gonna take care of you ultimately. All right. So that you can produce more fruit. It says so that it will be even more fruitful. You are already clean because of the world. I have spoken to you. Remain in me as I also remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. Right? It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. So we have to stay connected to the Lord. Right? If we want to bear fruit. It says, I am the vine, ye are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. If you do not remain in me, you are like a branch that is thrown away and withers. Such branches are picked up, thrown into the fire, and burned. God, man. Again, we know what that fire is. So we are in a time of, pruning, man. This is the pruning process. So with that, Lord willing, once again, this video was edifying. Until next time, I'd like to close it out by giving all praise, All honor and all glory to the Most High, Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Bahashem, Rekah HaKodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders, great millstone, Shalom, and Shalom to the hopeful elect.